Welcome back for another week of the Unstoppable Force podcast. I'm Guy,
And I'm Rob.
and we are on our 18th episode. Yeah. One less number than the last two digits of our year. Fascinating fact about the episode number.
Yeah, next week
Yeah.
it's gonna be the last two digits.
Yeah.
Wow. Fuck you.
But something that was kind of interesting that we want to talk about today is there's a new candidate for the Democratic Party that's kind of blowing up right now, Andrew Yang.
Yeah, there's a fascination.
And he's kind of been like out of the spotlight up into this point, but he has kind of been there. He was at the last debate and the debate before that.
Yeah.
And it kind of went unnoticed, but in the last about month, I'd say, last 2 weeks even.
Yeah, 2 weeks, yeah.
He's kind of exponentially like gone up in popularity, mostly because of the internet.
Absolutely, because of the internet.
Because of the internet? What?
No, I'm saying that's
just because the internet?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
the reason, because he's been on, it's mainly podcasts. Because in the debates he has not talked much, and they haven't given him much opportunity. But I think when he
apparently in the first debate, by the way, his microphone was off or something.
Oh, no way!
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
And then they tried to say that it wasn't, but then I can't confirm it. But the people had said that they rewatched it and that there was times where he had said things and there was no sound.
Wow.
So if that's true, then that kind of fucking sucks.
We need to look deeper into that and get the internet mad. I think that would help too.
I think they already kind of are. The mainstream media has been very awkward about him.
Oh yeah.
They're I remember finding a video, it was like a CNN video when I was sort of just finding out about his existence through Elon Musk.
Right.
Yeah,
no. The other part of the internet, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, yeah, that was only a few days ago. It was
2 or 3 days ago, I think.
Yeah, I think it was
just...
No, it was yesterday.
Okay.
It was Monday, because that's when I discovered it. So it was yesterday at about 5 or 3 o'clock, I think it was. And
so when you're listening to this 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah. But basically, I don't know. What was I saying before we trailed off Elon Musk?
Endorsed him. I don't know. And then there was a video on CNN.
Right. Yeah, because they were saying how the title of the video is actually white, or I forget exactly what it was, but essentially white supremacists support Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
And it was a 15-second clip of a 5-minute video. He was asked that question. Yeah. Apparently, he had said that more babies, or more people were dying than babies were being born in poor white communities.
Yeah.
And then that had something to do with that means he must want more white people. And it's no, it's just poverty. It's just a statistic about poverty, guys.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, so I've also ventured into the realm of 4chan a bit, and when with the presidential election, when Trump got elected before that, there was all the memes there for him. And recently, when Yang kind of announced and he kind of came through saying he wants to give his $1,000 a month, and then I guess with some of these comments, there's just all the memes on there about being part of the Yang gang, and the memes came from there, and arguably you can say that they're white supremacists on 4chan, and so that comment with that shit is just okay, what does that really mean? It's just
I think it's kind of, there's this warped idea where if a person who is of bad character likes your product or likes your idea, that means your idea must also be of bad character.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm sure there's a lot of white supremacists that buy stuff from Amazon, and just because they like Amazon doesn't mean that Amazon is pro white supremacist.
Yeah, well, they drink milk, so we can't drink milk because that's white supremacist.
I think they also drink alcohol.
Yeah,
so we gotta quit that too.
They might smoke weed unless they're too racist for that.
Man.
I don't know.
Some of them may, and then some of them probably are not.
What? Yeah. If even one does, then we cannot.
Right.
If they wait, do they breathe too?
Ooh. I guess breathing. Breathing has now been what's the word when they take over like a symbol or a
Appropriated.
appropriated. Yeah,
Yeah.
breathing has now been appropriated
Yeah. Yeah.
by white
Oh
supremacists.
my god. Oh man.
We can't do it now.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and it's kind of sucks right now where
yeah.
like literally any white supremacist can be like, this is my symbol.
Yeah.
Oh, now that symbol is automatically a white supremacist symbol. We
Yeah.
can't use it. It's like, could I like take a picture of Obama and like start a Facebook community about like how we are like the followers of Obama, but we're also white
Oh my
supremacists.
god.
Like, anything can be appropriated, guys, and it doesn't mean that that thing is inherently bad now.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's just that's kind of crazy that they'll just like go with the headline like that or like video, and just that'll be the substance. Like, come on, man.
I think their mentality behind it is that their audience is primarily going to be older people,
Mm,
and older people only really care about these candidates, these
mm,
few candidates, and they're
mm.
getting all this time and all this
Because they're
screen
only
time.
watching it on TV. If they're like
Mhm.
seeing a clip, they're just gonna see this little clip of like something that that's so bad.
And I'm sure
Yeah.
even on the websites, because my mom does, use she's
Y- mm,
more conservative and she
yeah.
goes on Fox.
Yeah.
Um, but either way, even if you're on Fox, the articles that you're going to click on are going to be articles about the candidates that you think are more
Right.
interesting.
Yeah.
And if you have this kind of like candidates doesn't really have any popularity, then putting a
Mm,
clickbaity, kind of more anger focused sort of title, especially in this
mm,
case, it was CNN. So they're
yeah.
trying to go for the liberal old people.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of just put something like, oh, he's supporting white supremacists. People go, what? Who is supporting
Yeah.
white supremacists?
Wow.
Supremacists? And they click on the video. And then by the end of it, they're like, oh, I actually like Andrew Yang. So
Wow.
maybe
Yeah.
it's not all bad. It's kind of
Yeah.
like an accidental.
Mm,
They're probably just going to make people like him
maybe. Yeah.
because it was only like 15 seconds of a 5-minute
So
video.
yeah, I think like obviously the media needs to not do that type of stuff, and I think even when they do that, we have to focus on the actual like substance of the
Mhm.
candidates. So
I think the internet has sort of changed how we look at media, though,
yeah.
and we kind of see through it.
Mm,
Like media can't manipulate us like barnyard animals and just kind of like put us in cages and be like, you think like we do
mhm,
because this is what we say is right. Now it's like, oh, this person is not just media and information. They are a person with an agenda, with a
mm,
bias, with
yeah.
certain beliefs that they are trying to convey to me, and they are manipulating information to make it in their favor. And we never thought of news like that until like basically about the 2010s. Because before
Mm,
that, news was actually fair more so, and
mm,
it was usually not as bipartisan um and it wasn't really as biased and it wasn't this sides game as much as it is now.
yeah.
So I think
Mm,
that that's sort of changed, and as a result, I think that things aren't as effective, like
mm,
titles and whatnot.
yeah. Yeah. But I think we should kind of get into why this guy is so fascinating.
Yeah, well, being having blown up so much,
Yeah.
there's definitely some reasons behind it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, one of his main ideas is the freedom dividend,
Yep.
which is like the $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Um, and it essentially,
I think to
mhm.
to talk to say what it really is, I think we have to like kind of talk about why he's going with that. Kind of like what do you think like looking to the
So
future, because I think that
he always kind of
his
starts with
concern,
automation.
yeah, exactly, because his concern with automation and like all the robots that take away all the manufacturing jobs and
Mhm.
put people out of work, and if that increases at a rate which people cannot find jobs, and there's so in the market's oversaturated with people that are unemployed that can't find jobs, that can't create new skills in time
Mhm.
to find another job, then we're gonna have a problem, right?
Right. And one interesting thing too is when the Industrial Revolution happened, that was like a period of time where a lot of people had displacements of
Mm,
jobs, right? But the thing is that when jobs were being lost, they were very often being replaced because one's physical labor was always worth money.
yeah,
But when you can replace one's physical labor with a
robot.
automated system,
Yeah.
you're not doing what the previous system used to do. previous system would change the jobs,
Mm.
right? So now you maybe weren't working in a field, you were working in a factory because there was still manpower needed for all of these new industries, so people were able to make an adjustment. And these are obviously low education jobs, meaning that
Right.
there's a
Yeah.
replacement of a low education job, a
Mm.
labor job.
Mm.
But right now, with automation going into place, there is no replacement for low labor, low education
Yeah.
jobs.
Low skill.
And to try to tell everybody, hey, you guys all have to go to college now because those are where all the jobs are. But, don't worry about the amount of debt you're going to get into
Yeah.
and how college is one of the worst ideas ever right now. And no one should really, if you're going to do it, you better become like a lawyer or a doctor or
Or
an
engineer.
engineer or a
Yeah.
computer scientist or like a real, actual,
Mm.
like high
Oh yeah.
education job.
Oh
If
yeah.
you're just getting a philosophy degree
Mhm.
and then doing nothing with it, then don't get it.
Yeah. At this point, like especially in the near future, we're gonna be. It was like high school degree was the degree. Then now it's college. Soon we're gonna be masters. Everybody's got to get that, and then PhD, and then like by that time, like you're not even good enough for the workforce. You're just doing
Mhm.
research. So.
One thing that he is also in favor of that was mentioned in some of his online interviews was that he actually does believe that education needs a bit of a reform,
Mhm.
not only obviously in reducing the cost of college, but
Mm.
also changing the system a little bit more towards the European style,
Mm.
which is more of like a mentorship
Okay.
sort of program where like people would have like a mentor and they would go to specialized schools
Mhm.
starting in high school.
Yep.
And I've always been very much in favor of those
Yeah.
things. I
As am I.
remember.
I know that's kind of a. I don't know if it's China or Asian country basically kind of does that where very young age you kind of know already what you're gonna do. There's no like 18 years to figure it out and then another 18 years to think you know what you want to do and then another 4 to 8 years to actually get the degree.
I think some people are a bit afraid of the system though, just because there's this argument that I've heard of like, well, I didn't know what I wanted to do until I was halfway through college. How do you expect me to know in high school? And I think that that's valid, but also not valid. It's valid because that sentiment is a result of the system.
Yeah.
Because the system is constantly like jack of all trades, jack of all
Yeah.
trades. You have to be equal in all
Mm.
of your grades,
Yep.
right? If you have A pluses in science and math, but you're getting C's and D's in history and English,
Mm.
instead of the system saying, "Hey, why don't we just
Go into that
yeah,
field. Yeah.
obviously you're way better at that. Why would we ever make you do English, right?" Instead of doing that, instead we're like, no, you actually have to do less math and you have to do less science,
Mhm.
and we're going to make you spend more time doing English and doing history so that your A's across the board rather
Yeah.
than just being like A pluses in these two subjects
Yeah.
out of four.
It's really interesting because the market's not even like that like
Right.
either because
The
the
market's all
yeah,
specialized.
exactly. Like you don't have one person that's like, for example, making all of like you have a pencil, like a number two pencil, wooden pencil. There's no one place that's just making all of that shit. There's one place that's making the graphite, there's another place making the eraser, and then the wood,
Mhm.
and then it all comes together. It's like each person like specializes in these things, and we come
Mhm.
together and create something big. You
I
don't
mean,
just know everything.
even if you're programming, you're
Yeah,
usually programming specific things or
yeah,
specific types of
languages
things.
or
If you're in
yeah,
finance, you're working with different like financial like
like
sections or
mm,
areas like
yeah,
algorithmic trading and
yeah,
uh, market risk
mm,
and there's like different specializations within every
mhm,
field. If you're an artist, you could be a sketcher.
yeah,
You could be a concept artist. You
mhm,
could be a shader, right? So League of Legends, it has these beautiful art for all of their characters and
yeah,
all their skins and everything. And that team is one person does the
mm,
sketching, another person does hard lining where they draw in the hard lines,
yeah,
the next person does coloring, and then another person does shading. So you're even if you're an artist, it can get all the way down to all your job is coloring in,
mhm,
and three other people are doing the other things that you were doing in college. You were doing all
mhm,
four of them, no matter what it is, even in like medical field of specialization, lawyers specialization, everything's specialized now.
yeah,
And it's weird to like try to make everybody jack of all trades because it's like most people don't need more than
mhm.
for math at least than algebra.
I think we're kind of afraid of. unemployment though, because if you like are really good at one thing and you can't really do anything with it, or you find out that
Mhm.
you're good at it. That's the best thing you're good at, but you're not as good as like a lot of the market. So then you're just screwed. So now you just went in and you did all this, and now you have to find another way to be useful. And then we're like, oh shit, he didn't learn anything else. What the hell are we gonna do? Like he's only good at this one thing. So I
Mhm.
think there's a kind of like I don't know when that really happened, but I feel like that's kind of something that we like as a society we just wanted that to happen. That like
Like a
it doesn't matter.
stability,
Yeah,
of not having a job be
yeah,
removed by something else.
yeah.
And this is actually something I think is really interesting that they talked about. I think it was Ben Shapiro and
Andrew
Andrew
Yang.
Yang.
Yeah.
They actually said that essentially you want to move jobs into non-automatable jobs called
Mhm.
crafts and trades.
Yeah.
Plumbing, for example. You cannot create a robot that's going to be able to do plumbing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to be able to get somebody who can carve wood. You're not going to be able to get somebody who can make all of these like trade goods, like,
Mm.
carpentry
Well, I mean,
and stonemasonry and
handmade stuff.
right, like craft, like actual crafting
Okay. I mean, I
trades.
saw.
If we can move
I
people
mean,
into
I'm pretty
those
sure
roles,
I've seen an article about AI knitting like gloves or something like that.
but that's still, if you look at somebody knitting,
Hmm.
they're doing a
Motion that's
motion that's
repetitive.
repetitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not too
I mean,
crazy.
I guess if you like tell an AI to draw a cat, right, and do that, and then if you can kind of
Mhm.
make it like 3D model it, and then it can carve it out.
So I think
I don't
that drawing
know. Mm,
it can do,
okay.
right? But if it was to say like take a block of wood and turn it into a wooden spoon,
Yeah.
it would have to have all of the tools attached to it
Okay.
to do that, or the ability to pick up and use tools to the dexterity that a human can do.
I mean, it would just be like a drill kind of, or like a different arm, like to like
You're
probably use
saying
like
like
two different
if
arms.
it had attached tools, but remember, like part of it's precision,
Yeah.
right? And the ability to adjust constantly the precision, right? Because if you put something and you lock it on a table, then it's easier to like craft something, I think,
Yes.
than if you had to actually constantly been manipulating it and
Yeah.
changing it
Yeah. Yeah.
and adding detail to it. And I think like the more complex it gets, the harder it is to automate.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Like even having a robot, like you said, that can actually creatively design something
Hmm.
that has the ability to either wield tools to the dexterity of a
Hmm.
human or have tools attached to it that.
Hmm. I mean, we're gonna we're probably gonna have automation in making the things that people design, but not being able to design them for a very long time. Because we're still gonna need somebody to say
Mhm.
how the spoon looks and whatever. Like you can feed a bunch of information maybe, and it knows all different like what a spoon's supposed to look like, but it's gonna pick like the form of it, and then it's gonna make it, and it's gonna be
Probably a
like
bad example too, because I'm sure there's wooden spoons that are already manufactured.
yes.
So
So but
not
this
the best. But like the
right,
idea of taking a block of wood and
yeah,
turning it into a spoon is not what they do. They
right.
have a much more complicated process of like many
Through the
robots on a
line, yeah,
conveyor
yeah,
belt.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's still automated,
it is, and
but it's
it's
it's the design of these things that is
right,
not gonna be automated away for a long time.
exactly. And I think plumbing was, I think, the best example of it because
Yeah,
no matter what, it's not even a craft. It's just it's like a trade. It's like stonemasonry. Like I said,
yeah.
you can't build a robot that's gonna put in stones and build a stone wall
Mm.
like around a house or something
I guess. I mean, they have.
and get it
I
to
mean,
market.
I don't want to keep shitting on your ideas, but
What?
there's you ever see them 3D print a house? There's like a machine that goes around in a circle, lays out the like
Hmm.
cement in a circle, and keeps going around and around and around. Like it kind of lays it out until it's like topped off,
The thing is I
and like it
think
doesn't get
that
all the way done, but like
right.
now you don't need a team of like 10 people to like lay out the whole thing. So now if you have like a wall you want to put down, the thing
Hmm.
robot just goes and lays it down.
So this is kind of interesting, but I think that, and this is more of a prediction.
Mm,
I think of how we as a society are changing based on the stimuli that we're
mm,
constantly receiving, and that there's this love for authenticity right now, where like, brands are trying to like be almost like singular people and like on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. Like
Yeah.
they
Like
don't act like a company. They just
yeah.
act like another Twitter user. And
Yeah. Well, like the way YouTubers even are, like the biggest ones. It was like, oh, like if there's some fake shit, but like everybody knows what's real. Or podcasts even. Like you don't need to be fake like it's a radio show or nothing
right.
like that. They want the people to just talk. That's it.
hmm
This is us. This is what's gonna happen.
And I think that that is a result of this feeling of being almost overwhelmed with ingenuine
Yeah.
marketing and
Mhm.
stimuli. And so I think that um, people are already moving away from a robotic feel. So if a house were to be built from the bottom up by a 3D printer, it's going to look like a house that was
Yeah.
built with a 3D
Yeah. Yeah.
printer. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? If a robot builds a wall,
Mhm.
that wall is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But that's doesn't seem to be like, I feel like what people really want right now.
Mhm.
They actually want less, of this like faker, more kind of robotic and dead, soulless
Mhm.
feel things to them. It's like I would rather buy a set of wooden spoons that were made by a person
Yeah.
than one that was just manufactured and sold by IKEA with
Yeah.
really trash
Mhm.
quality
Yeah.
wood that is basically probably composite wood that's like in a mold or something,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
then it's just polished on the outside and then
Right.
finished.
So here's an interesting thought I just came up. Um, so that I think this what's gonna happen is we're gonna get this automate. We already have this automation of like all these like IKEA is a great example of like this like kind of mass producing something so cheap but like so cookie cutter that it's good. It's great. Like it works the way it is, and like we're not gonna complain. Then on the other hand, you want something that's like handmade. Now that's gonna be so special, and like the cost on that is just gonna be like as we go into the future with like automating a lot of things, that stuff will go down, but the things
hmm
that are actually created by humans, that all that stuff's gonna go up in
Yeah,
like value, and people are gonna
because there has
like
to be a
want that.
redistribution of all the money that's
Hmm.
disappearing to
Hmm.
automation
Hmm.
and kind of just going into companies.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where his $1,000 comes into play. Actually, it's because if you almost think of it, right? So if you have a company and that company has 10
Mm.
employees, and over the course of the last few years, it replaces one of its 9 employees with an
Mhm.
automated system,
Mhm.
right? That is one job that disappears but doesn't get replaced, and that person
Yeah.
is now displaced. That company doesn't lose manpower, but will earn whatever that person's salary was on top of what they were already making, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a different. You're like gonna subtract with the cost of like the automation, but yeah,
Right. So
like
like
it would won't
a
change that much.
company before couldn't just, get rid of
Mm.
jobs and not lose productivity. But nowadays, a company can get rid of jobs while not just retaining its productivity, but improving its productivity. So
Yeah.
it's actually the complete opposite of what it would be like to fire somebody
Mhm.
only 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and now firing people is like good for companies because they can replace it with a free, more optimal version of it. And as this happens, these companies gain more profits, but there's less money in circulation now because essentially it's not being given back to those people, and now
Mm.
there's this large number of people who aren't getting paid while
Yeah.
Yeah.
company may be doubling its entire profits. Like for
Mhm.
example, with truck drivers is
Yeah.
his big example, where apparently 7 million truck drivers in the country, and all of them are going to lose their job to self-driving trucks.
Right.
And that's something that I think we all can believe because there's already self-driving cars.
Yeah.
It's not too
Um,
far-fetched to imagine self-driving
right. It'll
trucks.
happen. It's just that what's the rate at which it happens?
I
It's
think
the
it'll, I
real
mean, it'll
question.
happen definitely within the next like 5 years, I think is
Yeah.
projected.
Yeah.
And so if 7 million people lose their jobs, and all those companies that previously were spending, you know, tens of millions, possibly up into billions of dollars on all of these salaries, which is
Mm.
on average, I think it's about
Mhm.
I think 45,000 ish or something like
Mm.
in the 40s. I think is the average
Okay.
income
Yeah.
of a truck driver. Uh,
Yeah.
$40,000 times 7 million is how much additional profit these companies are going to make,
Mm.
right? And on top of that, because their vehicles are more optimal, they don't have to stop to poop, they don't have to stop to pee.
Sleep.
There's more. It's
Yeah.
actually even more quick.
Yeah.
So between those two things, that company could double its profits. But none of that money is being returned because the whole idea is that, oh, but big companies make jobs and jobs
Hmm.
pay Americans and then Americans will buy stuff. And
Yeah.
that's why we should support big companies.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Well, here.
Now they're getting rid of people.
Yeah. I guess the only like counter argument. Well, something I guess I noticed with truck driving, it seems like it's like a little bit different of like a market there than let's say like a manufacturing job in a plant, or
Mhm.
because like those things, that company that's like making something, right, they have to get their stuff somewhere, and so then they start automating that. They can spend more money into producing more and then like mass producing it so the costs less, so that like the money, like it's not going to those people that lost their jobs. Obviously it
Mhm.
might go into like a different sector of the market, but like with
So,
the job, with the like driving a truck, obviously like it's just a truck. Like
mhm.
they're not buying anything unless they buy more trucks. But they're not like that. That money isn't going anywhere in those companies,
So
I
you're
guess.
you're absolutely right, and there is a philosophy that I think some people have that if it costs less money to make something, that a company should then lower its prices, right?
Yeah.
And I find
But
this fascinating because you can even just look right at the video game industry, for example.
yeah.
We've talked about this only I
Mm,
think 2 weeks ago when we were
yeah.
talking about loot
Mm,
boxes, and we mentioned how during physical disc sales
yeah.
that there was a significant percentage of the money being made that was going to the physical selling
Mm,
of these products and
yeah.
GameStop and all of the actual materials that go
Mm,
into it. And that even though they have actually made significantly more money by going
mm,
full digital,
yeah.
that the savings have not been passed along to the consumer.
Mm,
And the question is, well, why? Why is it not being paid forward? And
mm,
the reason is because we don't demand it.
yeah.
And if something called the status quo, right?
Yeah.
And if you're able to reduce what you're selling, but you don't adjust the prices,
Mm,
then people won't get upset
yeah. As long as you don't raise them.
as long as you don't raise them.
Okay.
And in most cases, it's very disadvantageous to
Mm,
companies to do that, even if
mm,
it means to like undercut a competitor.
yeah.
Because the problem is that if they undercut a competitor, the competitor will just match them.
Yeah.
And that means that every time somebody undercuts the other person, it will just permanently go down, and now they can't raise it again without being like the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is against the ideas of
Mm.
what it means to try to make as much money as possible as a business to reduce
Well, not
prices
really.
as a result of spending less money
Not
making
really
them.
though, because if you reduce costs, like if you're with from your competitor, that means you're the idea of doing that is to get more of the market to come to
Mhm.
you because you cost less. So if you're able to grab that at least initial movement of price before your competitor does, you're just grabbing a bunch of people that are gonna buy your stuff because it costs less, and you're
Mhm.
gonna undercut your competitor. And yeah, they'll match you, and then like you're stuck at this price. But like it's still they're able to cut the price while keeping the
Another thing
profits up.
too, I think you kind of have to think about too is like, well, how do we reduce prices?
Mm.
Right? Because um, it's not like, just because it's
With
easier to make some products, it's not going to be easier to make other products, right? Um, so a product that can be made for cheaper would go down in
mm-hmm.
price, and it would kind of, I feel like, destabilize the general trends that we understand of things and their costs, right? So part of the reason why
I
video
mean,
games don't go down in price, right?
right? It's actually really just like the supply demand thing.
I mean, basically what I'm saying is
But
that if we all of our prices that we understand right now get
mm,
janky
yeah.
because automation is going so fast
Mm,
that companies are making insanely larger numbers
mhm.
of or larger
Yeah.
profits every year, and they don't even know how to pass it along to the consumer, and they're like, well, we could reduce it, but we don't
Well,
have to reduce it.
right.
And if we did, then it would be like, I think that it would kind of disable the entire industry it's within,
Maybe. I
right?
mean, that's the whole point of it, though, like, is to go after like your competitors. But I want to mention
But
that.
your competitors aren't always the same as what you are doing. For example, video games and music are competitors. They're competitors for people's time
Okay.
and attention.
Okay. Yeah, but
So
like
if
you.
somebody's more into video games, they may not actually spend as much money on music. Everyone only has so
Yeah.
much money.
Yeah. But I don't. We haven't seen like cost of music. Like I don't know. I guess I just haven't looked into it. But like the cost of music versus the cost of a video game, and like what you're gonna spend your money or on. So
What I
that
mean though
doesn't
is
really
like
matter. That's not.
what I'm saying is that
So like
essentially
that's not
that
what it is because if
if we
it's a
designed
price. If,
okay,
if the price changes in one market, like that's video
right.
games, those people are already gonna are bought into that. So it
So
doesn't matter.
this is my argument. So if let's say, and this is not a very good argument, I just try to extrapolate it to like other industries. I'm just using these two as an example. Um, but essentially, if you were to create an AI that could make music, right? It can listen to people's voices.
Yeah.
It can listen to beats and songs, and it can make songs that were good enough
Mm.
to be like top 10 Billboard hits,
Yeah.
right? It learned how to basically make perfect
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah.
Now, that thing could destable the music industry, right? Because now artists like labels,
Mhm.
well, they want to make as much money as possible.
Yeah.
So they may just start using AI and then start
Okay.
marketing AI as like individuals or something so they don't
Hmm.
feel like as much
Well,
robots.
they already kind of have.
And
In Japan, there's Vocaloids, and they're like packs of voices in a sense, and they already have like
okay,
Miku
so
is
it's
a
not that far off then.
personality that they use. Then they make music,
Mhm.
and they have concerts, hologram concerts with her, and she's been featured on other people's stuff. But
Right.
but I think
Wait,
you're
wait.
go
I
ahead.
want to finish
All right,
first
go
too,
ahead.
because video games would be way more difficult to automate
Yeah.
the creation of than
Yeah.
music.
Hmm.
So if you have two competing entertainment industries and one of them suddenly just got way cheaper because they followed this philosophy of,
Hmm.
well, now we spend almost no money because we don't even need to pay
Hmm.
a artist any money at all.
Yeah.
So like Ariana Grande, whatever
Hmm.
money she's made on an individual level is just money now that that company and that label has made,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
That means that they can, if they choose to, pass that on to the consumer. But now if music prices like drop down to 5 cents,
Mm.
now it's like music's not really competitive anymore. It'll just
Mm.
turn into kind of a free market,
Mm.
open kind of thing. And I feel like it could stifle interest in it, and it could stifle
Yeah.
like the motivation
Mm.
to create great
Yeah.
music because there's not as much money to be made in that industry and things like that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't think we want to reduce prices anyway
Okay. I
in
guess.
some cases.
Well, I will say that picking the music industry is like the worst example you could
Yeah,
have.
that's what I was saying. It was just
Because on
what
top
we were
of
talking
like
about
the prices not really like
being yeah.
changed, it's not about that money in your records. It's about your concert,
Hmm.
honestly. So that's where like these artists make their
Right.
money. So like this is just advertising for their concerts. On top of record labels, if they do have like automated music, you already have artists going to Spotify individually and
Yeah.
just going and owning themselves. So like even if the record labels have that, they don't have the actual people.
Yeah. And that's the music industry was a terrible example
Yeah,
here for a
yeah,
lot of reasons, especially since we don't even like buy music anymore. We just spend money on streaming
yeah.
services.
But
Um,
I do want to mention that if you have a bunch of people that go uh out of jobs,
mhm,
then they don't really have money to spend. And in industries where the so the demand just gets reduced, that's usually where prices follow because the
mhm.
supply demand there's a higher supply than there's demand, so then prices usually drop because of that.
Right. So
And
you're
with
saying like
automation,
if
because people will not have that much money, because
mhm.
automation makes it so way more cheap to make, then the prices will drop because the demand drops because they don't have money. So then that's why the price will go down because
Mhm.
people just can't afford it, and then these companies realize that they need to keep the prices low and they can still make these profits anyway.
So I think that once again,
Hmm.
like everything you say is not wrong, really, because it is true. I mean, like you can lower your prices.
Mm.
Markets would force the prices to lower because people wouldn't have as
Mm.
much money, and
Yeah.
therefore they wouldn't be able to make as much
Mm.
money because they're selling it at a price that's too high, and now the demand is too
Mm.
low. So they have to
Yeah.
reduce the price in order
Yeah.
to once again
Hmm.
match up supply and demand.
Yeah.
But the problem is that although all of those things are true, that the percentage of people that would be displaced by automated jobs is still like roughly 30% over the next
No,
10, 20 years.
no,
And it may even be higher than that, and we're just not imagining
or
all the locations that
yeah.
robots can take
I
over.
mean, we're also not imagining the new jobs that were created. Like, we didn't imagine like years ago that somebody would be making YouTube videos, like, or living off of that, for example. So like
Hmm.
both of these are kind of unknowns.
I
And
think that this job that's being created is not being created by automation, though. The idea of a
no,
YouTuber,
but no,
but
but
it is a
okay.
new type
In
of
spite
job.
of yes, in
Yes,
spite of automation, jobs have always been created that were outside of this realm.
right. So
So
I
that's
think
all. That's all I'm saying
right.
is that we also don't know that other opportunities to have jobs.
But internet, if you look at the
Mhm.
types of jobs that are created by the internet, they're very specific type of job, and it's only one type of job, and it's a company, it's a business.
Okay.
Whether it's a YouTube channel, your YouTube channel is a business, right? You are creating, you're essentially a TV show, and
Mm,
every channel that goes out or every video that goes out is an episode of your
mm,
TV show,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
If it's a Etsy page,
Mm,
you're creating some sort of craft. If
mm,
it's a Fiverr page, you're providing some sort of service. No matter what job, it could be you
if
could
it's
be
like a store,
a
online store.
freelancer, right? You could be making your own socks and sell
Yeah.
them because you made your own
Yeah.
website,
Yeah.
right? Every job on the internet is a small business. Every single job is essentially all it boils down to is a small business that a single
Mhm.
person can operate and own, and then they can earn enough money as a single person to then add people.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the internet. And I think that it's sort of like the second coming of
Mm,
the American dream or whatever you want to
yeah.
believe.
Okay.
But the thing is that it only works if we actually have the time to invest in those small businesses.
Mm,
And I think that with all the automation killing off these jobs, first off, they're killing jobs faster than the internet's making jobs.
mm.
Secondly, uh, the skills that people have been learning and spending most of their life gaining, um, they can't apply to those new jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a truck driver isn't going to be good at YouTube. He's going to have no fucking
He better
idea.
start now. Just on his trip. Yo,
Um,
we back at it driving. Remember to like and subscribe. We'll be out
Probably
here.
wouldn't be terrible. There's
Dude.
like farmers that are now YouTubers that apparently make more money being a YouTuber than they are making being a farmer
Wow.
because people just enjoy watching them
Yeah.
farm
Wow.
and be vloggers of like farming.
People want to see the real day stuff. I don't know. Yeah.
It's cool, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's actually kind of like
Informative.
it's
And
informative, but it's also relaxing
yeah.
because sometimes like there's like I've watched videos of people um fixing like the horse's hooves,
Yeah.
and like carving and like making it sort of like these mechanical skills that people have that are just kind of like relaxing to watch, like ASMR almost in a
Yeah.
way,
Oddly
or like
satisfying sometimes.
right. And so I think that the issue is that if we lose all these jobs, then first off, all of those people are going to go into the welfare system, into
Welfare.
unemployment, or sorry, welfare system and unemployment,
Mm,
and they're going to be siphoning money from the government,
mm.
right? And
Yeah.
these systems are so inefficient
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
and so ill thought up where like if you're getting disability, like you can't go out and be part of your community because then you'll look like you're not disabled,
Yeah.
and then you're going to basically feel afraid. And then it's also like the self-fulfilling prophecy where if you're getting paid to be disabled, you think of yourself as disabled, so you're going to
Mm,
act disabled
yeah.
even if you could be doing more.
Yeah.
And then there's like the welfare system where it's like if you make an extra $1,000 a year,
Mm,
suddenly you're not getting anywhere near as much money than you were before because now you're no longer qualified for welfare.
yeah. Yeah.
So like you literally are almost encouraged by our current system not to get additional
Mm,
jobs or
yeah.
try to make more money.
Yeah.
Um, so there's so many problems with it. Yang's solution to that problem is a universal basic income. It's a form of it called the
Freedom dividend.
freedom dividend. Yeah. And is essentially this idea that because automation is taking all these jobs away from markets without giving suitable replacements, right? And they are reaping the benefits of automation in the forms of incredibly larger
Mm,
profits, right? Because they're not losing any money and they're only gaining money from removing these employees.
mm.
They have to essentially pay a, I guess you could call it a tax or whatever you want to call it, but essentially a percentage of that money is going to have to go back to those people. in order
Okay.
to sustain them enough so that they can move to another job. And it's
Mm.
not just the people who are
Affected by
losing,
that. Yeah, yeah.
it's everybody.
Okay.
I personally like the idea.
Mm.
I think that, right now a lot of Americans are kind of at the wall of like just barely making enough money to get by.
Right.
And if somebody was just to get added $12,000, what I would do or what other people would do, I think a
Right.
lot of people are going to try to invest it into those internet
Yeah, yeah.
businesses and into their communities. And if they are facing medical
Mm.
issues, they're going to obviously save for those things or put it into those things, but then they
Right.
at least get the alleviation of their stress
Right.
of how it's going to affect them.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds nice. I'm just skeptical. Like, what happens when like a bunch of like landlords know that everybody has $1,000 more a
Hmm.
month? Like,
Will
do
there be
the
price hikes?
yeah,
Yeah.
will that happen? If that happens, those people are still against the wall, and that like we can't
So
really foresee.
I think that what we talked about earlier in this conversation directly is in line with this question,
What's that?
which is that you can't raise prices. Businesses have a very difficult time raising prices. Netflix has gotten away with it. It's like
Yeah,
the only
okay.
company I can think of that's raised prices of things anytime
Because they have
in
nowhere
in
else to go, right? The whole point is we raise prices, you have nowhere else to go, so then
right,
you stay here. Well, if every like
which is why they just
I
lost like quite a bit
mm,
of subscribers. They actually lost
well,
like
like
70 million or
if
something.
everyone knows, all these landlords know that everybody's getting this money,
Hmm.
then everybody's just gonna be like, all right, we'll go up, we'll be fine. Like, what are you gonna move like down the block to the guy that just raised his prices the same way?
So I think
Like,
that
it's just because everybody gets the know that everybody has that money now.
yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm just gonna guess that like it's like a we're coming to a compromise. Like if this person could have afforded like this rent, well
Hmm.
now I know for a fact that they can at least afford not like up
I
to a
don't think
thousand
people
dollars
would
more.
accept it. I think that's the problem. I think
Yeah,
that first off, only some
maybe.
landlords would do it because other landlords would be like, "Why would I do that?"
Right, right.
You know. So if only half of them did it, then people would just be like, "Okay, well, I'm moving out. See you
Yeah.
later. I'm just gonna go move somewhere that's not doing
Hmm.
it."
Well, then there's gonna be a higher demand in those other places, and they'll just have to raise their prices anyway.
Well, the thing is that the I think it's more just the fact that I think that they realize that nobody really
But
wins
yeah,
by
I mean,
raising those
we
prices.
don't really know. It's just a concern.
It's
I
also very
think that
transparent.
it.
If somebody raises their
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
prices, it's kind of like when there's a storm happening and everyone raises their prices in like a supermarket.
Yeah, or gas or something like
Like
that.
it's
Yeah.
very apparent that it's disgusting.
Right. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying like that's something that could happen that could also
Hmm.
like reset some people back to that to where they were before, and that like kind of affects people that were like that are renting. And that's a lot of people that we want to help is because of like they're stuck. They can't go afford a house because they're paycheck by paycheck, and
Hmm.
like that can be a problem that I see. And I guess do you know if it's going the way they extrapolate this money from these companies? Is it gonna be like a like when somebody buys something that's taxed, or like when
Well,
you
I think it
record your
gets
profits, that's like a corporate? Isn't it like a corporate tax? Like you record profits, is that taxed? Or
um
capital? No, capital
I'm
gains.
not
No,
an
that's different.
economist. I can't answer the questions exactly, but what I can answer is that there's a lot of different taxes that
Hmm.
a corporation has
So
to pay.
yeah, I know. Well,
And the thing is that the more we kind of go into that, the more
yeah,
you realize that our tax system is very much
yeah.
a poorly
Well,
built one.
did I know you mentioned it at some point, but did Yang say that he wants to get rid of the income tax and like kind of go with more of
It's
like a
yeah, it's called
tax
a
on
consumer tax.
oh,
It's
it's the value
actually
added tax? Is that what it? It's
I,
a
I
I
I
think it's
just
like
remember
the
him calling it a
okay,
consumer tax, and the way that
okay,
it's described essentially is that you're taxed on what you consume
yeah,
instead of being taxed on what you make.
yeah,
So I guess if you like make a lot of money but you don't spend a lot of money, you
mm,
won't get taxed as much.
yeah,
Versus somebody who's spending most of their money or might have
mm.
a higher tax. And
So doesn't that de-incentivize the richer people from buying shit? I
I
just thought of that. I
mean,
don't know.
most people who are rich,
They don't care, right?
their money is usually once again also tied up in assets. It's usually like
True.
very largely like
That's
stocks,
just gonna stop people from buying like
savings, and
their sports cars. Those middle aged. midlife crisis guys.
Hmm.
They're gonna be like, nah.
I mean, I think that we're very materialistic in general right now,
Hmm.
and there's even like apparently there's a I know that the Connecticut apparently doesn't have income tax, right?
Yes, they do.
But it's like different. I think their like tax system is
It's
slightly
just,
different.
I mean, yeah, it's still income tax. It's still maybe it's a different percentage or the rates are different, but they have
No,
income tax.
I'm because I know that they have like this rule of where the more cars you have, there's like
Yeah,
a
because a
car
car
tax.
tax.
Yeah.
So it's each car that you have, they assess your car for a value. Then they tax that car
Hmm.
based on the value that they gave the car,
Yeah.
and you have to pay that every year on
You're probably
something.
not far for this, but I actually am totally fine with a car tax because I
I
personally
mean,
think that
if you
people shouldn't own
removed,
a ton of cars.
even now you're just no, sure,
I mean, if
whatever.
they're like Jay
That's not the point
Leno
of
and they're like
this.
so rich,
Yeah,
they can
yeah,
own
but
as
the
many
point
cars
of
as
this
they
is
want.
to yeah, but like no, but that's not the point of the tax. The point of the tax is to get like for roads and shit.
I mean,
That's
yeah,
the point of the tax,
yeah.
and then so like you're just gonna tax like okay, somebody can afford more cars, they can afford more tax,
Reducing
whatever.
cars
But
in like cities and stuff like that would be
like
great.
it's like it should be more. I mean, if I was okay with the tax, I
Mhm,
would say it's more okay to go with a gas tax for usage. For because if you buy more gas, you're using more of the roads. Just
mhm,
by owning a car, you could leave it in your lot every year. You have like 10 cars sitting there. What's going on? Nothing with those cars. You're not using up the roads. You're not affecting and needing to fix the roads by
mhm.
using them. So I feel like on that front, it kind of like
Right.
just, you know,
Let's just kind of like bring it back to the
yeah.
whole millionaires. Like, would that affect them or not?
Mm,
I think it would affect them. I almost like imagine you think about good old Nicolas Cage.
okay.
Think about all the money he spent while he was making millions of dollars. He
Mm,
like bought like private islands.
mm,
He bought lavish chefs that would make him food,
mm.
and you can even look it up online. There's actual like videos that are dedicated to telling you how rich people
Yeah.
spend
Yeah.
insane amounts of their money.
Yeah.
I think that the types of people that are like in the top 100 richest people in the world, that's just because they own companies that
Mm.
are worth a lot of money. That's
Yeah.
really it. That's the only reason why anybody up there has any of that money.
Mhm.
I think it's like 98% of all of Bezos's entire net worth
Mhm.
is just his Amazon stock.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason why we're not seeing those great fluctuations of these people at the top's net worths
Yeah.
is because they can't sell their
Mm.
money.
Yeah.
Because if
Well,
they sell their money, then they no longer
on the
have their
comp.
ownerships of
Yeah,
their
and
company.
that's understandable. And well, in that sense, like
Right.
they can disband it for the people.
I remember like people were saying like, "Oh, Bezos can like end world hunger today," and it's like, yeah, he
You,
can, but he
uh,
also, I mean, it doesn't really
I
make
mean,
sense on an individual
I,
level for him
I,
to sell all of his
right. I
stock
mean,
and
if he
like,
did, I think everybody just gets like $175 or some shit like
I mean, yeah,
that.
individuals tend to not honestly have too much, like they
No.
do have a lot of
No,
money,
I
but
mean, if you were to look at individuals,
comparatively,
most of them that have the lot amount of money, it's like your athletes, your entertainers that
and
like
those people
make
spend
money.
a ton of the money that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
make,
yeah.
and
So
that's
now we're
all
gonna
liquid.
tax them.
Yeah, but the thing is that it basically just means that rich people can't as easily also avoid taxes because
Mm,
right now there's like all these tax breaks and there's all
mm,
of these like incentives and things like that,
mm.
and essentially companies like Amazon for example can buy another company, write it off as a profit, and now it's not taxable, or sorry, not it's not a profit, an
Well, like
expense.
yeah, the expense and those
Right.
expenses aren't
So like
taxed.
these companies, they literally do not want to make profit. In fact, Amazon hasn't made profit in
Mm,
years.
yeah,
And the reason is because as long as they spend the money, they can't be taxed on it.
yeah.
So they're just spending it on frozen assets
Hmm.
that they then hold on to.
Yeah, it's like they're incentivized to do that
So
by the
so
system.
right. So if the system just flips on its head and it says if you spend money, you have to pay taxes on spending money.
Mm.
Think about how much money Amazon spends. And it's not discouraging them from spending money because if they're not spending money, then they're just sitting on money.
Hmm.
And sitting on money is also bad for companies. You never want to just
Right.
have money lying around.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you pay it off to your I guess like
Mm.
executives or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
instead, um are they gonna just freeze it? Like it's
Well,
kind of
well,
weird. It's no
here's well,
longer
that's the thing. Well,
it no
like
longer would make
if they're
sense.
paying the CEOs or whatever, then it's like that's income to them. You're paying them income, or like or is it a different way that they do it?
What do
Because
you
if
mean?
that's income, then if there's no income tax, that person's just getting all that money, and in which case Amazon didn't pay taxes anyway. So if they are paying out
Hmm.
the actual people, then they're not paying taxes. So that would be a better way to increase like wages than just like implementing a minimum wage. You go with if you spend money on things that aren't people, then you get taxed. So if
Yeah.
the money goes to the people, you don't
It's
get taxed.
basically, I think that's kind of the idea, right? So if I give money to a local shelter, it's not spending my money. I'm not taxed on
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
But I am taxed for buying, Air Jordans or buying a new
Yeah, yeah,
laptop or
yeah,
buying. I think it decentivizes spending on material goods to an extent too.
yeah,
And I think like a lot of it too is that part of taxes that everyone hates taxes because it's going to like a system that already feels so flawed.
yeah,
And if like with this UBI, the universal basic income, I feel like this idea of a universal basic income that he's proposing is like instead of just taxing you and spending it for you in ways that we believe is
right,
the best places to spend
right.
it.
It's like this is my money getting taken from
Mhm.
me. I believe I should have a say in where my money that got
Right.
taken from me is going. That like kind of just now you have like
Mhm.
330 million people on the federal level deciding what other people are doing with this money,
Mhm.
and that like opens that up.
Yeah, and this is just taxing big companies who are automating their jobs away
Mm,
and then thus making because I think about it, right? If a company is making $1 million a year, right, just to keep it simple, and they cut jobs and replace it without losing efficiency, right? They are now going to make, let's say, 2 million a year, right? Because they had 100 employees, and those 100 they cut off half their employees, and half their employees were paid roughly around $1 million, right? Now they're making $2 million a year. They've displaced 50 people, 50 employees,
mm.
and they're making more money than they've ever made before in any market that's ever existed because automation is now the only essentially is given the ability for businesses to make more money by basically dissing humans and
Yeah,
taking a job away from a human.
yeah,
So it's like if you're going to make more money, give us a percentage of that. You
yeah,
get to still make more money than you've
mhm,
ever been able to make in that
yeah,
industry.
yeah,
But you have to give us a percentage of it. You have to give us some of it. And then once you take it, you distribute it
mm,
across the whole country and then it incentivizes consumerism and
mm,
also funding, businesses, funding communities,
mm,
funding all these things, and it just adds and kind of reintroduces frozen assets into the economy,
yeah,
and that's all it's doing because we are the richest country in the entire world,
yeah. Even the poorest people in our country are richer than the richest people in other poor.
right? But the thing is that even though we do have such high standards for poor people, there is a growing disparity of the rich and the poor,
Mm,
and I think that that is the direct result of automation because these CEOs and these executives of these companies, they're cutting jobs from their businesses, and those people who are at the bottom are making less money now, and the people at the top are making more money.
mm,
So automation is in favor of these big
yeah,
players. So we have to curb it by
yeah,
reintroducing that money back
yeah,
into the economy.
yeah, yeah. I just had a like a thought about like the minimum wage, like
Minimum wage sucks too
like I think
because it's not,
if you meant implement minimum wage, then all the companies are just gonna automate away the jobs for less, not pay humans,
dude.
and then we're gonna have this problem.
There's a lot of problems with minimum wage, and one of the main problems is that some businesses actually can't afford minimum wage.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, McDonald's can afford minimum wage, fine, sure, but your mom and pop store can't afford it
Nope.
all the time.
Yeah.
And they also can't afford all the damn fucking medical insurance you're making them pay, and the fact that it's insanely expensive. They also don't like that.
Yeah.
And it's only was in like I think it was like Reagan or something or like I forget who it was that implemented this system where companies had to pay
Provide
for medical insurance. It's
really?
only recent, yeah. and it's not helpful. In fact, it
I
de-incentivizes people
yeah.
from starting small
Or growing them.
businesses.
I know that one part of Obamacare was that if you have like 50 employees or more, then you have
Mhm.
to guarantee health insurance. And I remember during like a questioning or something, there was like some debate or town hall or something. Some lady said that I didn't grow. I have like whatever hair salon, and I have 49 people. I'm not hiring any more people because I can't afford to to hire more people to then pay the insurance for
Right. And
everybody.
it's these like weird little caps where if you
Yeah,
hit that cap,
yeah,
fuck you.
yeah,
And there's definitely needs to be a better system
yeah.
of paying for medical insurance because also, right, another frustrating thing is that if I'm a really healthy person
Hmm.
and I am never going to the doctor, I'm not taxing the Medicare system or the medical system that much,
Mm,
right? So if we were, for example, to go to a universal healthcare system, a person who is a hypochondriac
mm.
is going to the doctor every
Constantly.
week.
Yeah.
They are utilizing every asset within that system,
Mm,
even when they don't even need it.
yeah.
And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have somebody who's not using it at all.
Yeah.
And
And
so
then
one thing, Andrew, really quickly, one thing Andrew Yang did say is he said that you shouldn't be able to do that. You have to have skin in the game.
mm,
So the Medicare system that he would want is one where if you are going to the doctor more, you
mm,
should still pay more, and you
mm,
should still have the ability to pay for higher quality private insurance,
yeah.
but you should never not be able to get
Mm,
basic necessary
mm,
medical procedures
mm.
at the
Okay.
same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that like we should have skin in the game, and it's like I shouldn't have to pay taxes on Medicare for all when I myself
Yeah.
am perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
It's like I want other people to be able to be healthy, but you know, it doesn't, in my opinion, make that much sense because I feel like it doesn't really incentivize people.
Yeah.
Sorry for cutting you off, by the way. I apologize. What
No,
did you
I was
say?
just gonna say that like, and once you give the universal healthcare, then you leave into the system of broken government to then determine what's right or what you can have or you can't have again
Hmm.
through like the tax. Like the way we say, oh, here's like you're gonna tax you to give this other people, then everybody cares about what everybody has.
I mean, I think that's kind of the whole idea of the broken government is totally true
Right.
because the government sucks. But I think part of the reason why the government sucks is whoever has gotten elected into office has just kind of gone with it. They've never really there's a lot of talk about all these systems breaking and not working, but a normal politician comes in and they go, "We're going to change the tax brackets and we're going to change, how much people of this bracket get
Mm,
taxed
yeah.
and how much of this get taxed and we're going to try to make it work."
Or
It's
we're
like, well,
gonna
what if the whole system doesn't work?
right. They're gonna fix one thing, then there's unintended consequences, right? And then
Mhm.
they have to fix those consequences. And then I think that it was. I don't know if it was necessarily a design, but that's what they keep saying is that our government is made to move slowly in so
It
small
shouldn't be.
changes. And then when you have like gridlock, when there's the two-party system where you have like it's 51 to 49, it's like 50-50 in the votes and then the House and the Senate, and they're just trying to go back and forth for tit for tat. You're just
Mhm.
gonna get a little bit of what one side wants, then a little bit of the other side wants, and there's no change ever. It's just like tweaking the broken system each left and right each fucking time.
I think a lot of the reason for that is because politics isn't focused on solving problems and improving the lives of people. It's more focused on getting reelected
Yeah, and money.
and money,
Well, you're getting
yes.
money after you get
Well,
but
first
yeah.
off, most politicians are career politicians,
Yes.
meaning that they usually come from families
Yeah,
that
they didn't have
have
any other
political
job. Yeah, and they didn't
influence.
have any other job other than this. Like,
They were groomed
yeah,
from a very young age to be
yeah.
politicians. Most politicians
Like,
always wanted
like
to be
Bernie Sanders had no
politicians.
other job other than being like senator
Mhm.
for 100 years or something
Yeah.
like that.
And the thing is that when you do that, you're not going into it with this mentality of like
Hmm.
I'm fixing problems.
Yeah.
You go into it with this mentality of it's a popularity
Oh
contest
yeah.
and I have to win it.
Mm.
It's a pageant. It's a beauty pageant. And when you want to win a beauty pageant, you play the game.
Yeah.
You play what people want and what people want to hear.
Yeah.
And I think up to this point, people have wanted this sort of political scene to be the way it is, but now the split second we've been given the opportunity to go with something that's not just another politician. That's why I think Andrew Yang is standing out so much.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
because everyone is like, wait a minute, this person is actually becoming president because they
So
want to solve
yeah.
problems and change these broken systems,
Yeah. I don't.
rather than just be like, well, if I, make it so that the tax bracket in the lower ends
Yeah.
is higher,
Well,
then I'm going to
that's
get the
true.
minority
That's
vote.
true.
And then if I get the minority vote, I'll get into office. And then I can do this and this and that. And then all these,
Mhm.
people are going to like me more. And then I'm going to
Mhm.
get my next 4 years. And it's like, if it's just about getting them to like you, then you're not thinking about how to fix
Yeah.
these problems.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're just figuring out how to manipulate them.
Yeah. Definitely need more people to get into politics that have that same mindset as Andrew Yang. Absolutely.
And the thing is, too, is fascinating is that we elect politicians. Being a politician isn't
Because
a
we.
job because you no longer have a job the second you stop getting elected,
Yeah.
right? So if all of a sudden scientific and logical minded people like philosophers, psychologists,
Mm.
doctors, lawyers, scientists start all trying to be
Mm.
elected for
Yeah. Office.
offices, if Andrew Yang becomes president and does a fantastic job,
Yeah.
everyone in America is gonna be like, why are we voting for these like
Yeah.
reality TV show clowns? Like, let's vote for people who actually are coming out and telling us what we're gonna fix and how we're gonna
Yeah.
do it and where we're
That's.
gonna get all the money and where we're gonna
Mm.
put everything and how it's all gonna work.
Yeah. I wonder if like it'll just change. Like I'm not like dissing on Andrew Yang or anything at all, but like sometimes going into the office kind of changes you, and you kind of like can't get shit done that you think you were gonna get done. And then I wonder if because like we have such a specialization in this country with like all the engineers or whatever scientists, so it's like all these people they're not just gonna go and like go to try to take office because they have all these jobs that they're already doing that they're like
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, I'm like some people are just trying to help from the outside and that aren't like trying to do it in the system.
Well, I think it's not that they. I think part of it's that they don't believe that they can,
Mm.
right? So like if you see only a specific type of person getting a job, right?
Yeah.
And you're not that type of person, you maybe not you won't think that you can actually get that job or you
Mm.
can't do that thing. So especially when it comes to like a system where you're being voted
Mm.
on. I think a lot of technically minded people, logically
Mm.
minded people, um, are not drawn to those jobs because they know that they can't speak better than
Yeah. Yeah.
the politicians. They can't rile up emotionally everybody, and they can't do all these things. But if somebody else is showing the rest of them that it is actually possible for you to get elected now, and it's not even just that I'm proving that it's possible for a scientific person to be elected, but instead I'm actually providing the means through which people of all ages and races can be open minded to a new type of candidate,
Mm.
essentially. And I think that that would allow those people who maybe are actually trying to run for these places or for these positions that probably just get so few votes, and they are
Yeah.
engineers and they are
Yeah.
scientists and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, they'll probably do better.
Yeah.
But it is hitting about an hour.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, probably should wrap it up. But let us know what you guys think about Andrew.
And it's kind of exciting. I know I say that a lot of times, but I'm also just cautious that it won't last long. That he's a very tough road ahead of him.
Oh yeah. I think
So
that changing our minds is easy. Changing
yeah.
the internet's mind is easy.
Yeah.
But changing a bunch of old white people in Congress is really difficult.
Not just Congress. It's just all the boomers.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, at least he's like
I know. Yeah.
pioneering
Yeah.
this like Central America
Mhm.
struggling poor white person along with
Mm.
the other areas. But I think he
Yeah.
also recognizes he's kind of pander to that group because that's the Trump group.
Yeah.
And if he can take the Trump group away from him in all these swing
Mm.
states, he
Yeah.
if he does actually get to that point, he'll get the liberal states automatically because they don't want
Right.
Trump.
Right.
And
I
then he'll
think.
also get all the middle Americans who
Mm.
are like, "Holy shit, automation's stealing my jobs.
Mm.
Fuck that."
Yeah, I think that he's gonna be. It's fighting in for the Democratic nomination, unless he like ends up going like independent because he doesn't get the nomination. Because if he's not for like a minimum wage or like universal health care or something like that, he's gonna get eaten alive by all the progressives on the stage. Like there's a fight between the moderates and the progressives, and
Mhm.
he's just outside of both
He's
of them.
kind of a libertarian,
Yeah,
almost like a left
yeah,
libertarian.
yeah. So he's outside of this, so he has especially a hard
Mhm.
road ahead of him.
But
But
if you guys want to learn more about him, honestly, like watch some of the Joe Rogan podcast.
yes,
Ben Shapiro
yeah,
interviews him. I think that's the best one.
yeah.
He's
I
on
watched the
H3.
yeah, I watched H3 podcast.
But definitely look into it, listen to what he has to say,
Yeah,
and make your own opinion on it.
yeah, your judgment.
You don't have to agree. He's even said it himself. He said, I don't expect people to agree with me, and I would love it if they came to the table and said why, so
Yeah,
that we can discuss. Because maybe my plan isn't perfect.
yeah, it needs to get fixed or something.
Because I think that anybody who owns a business and is a smart, adaptable kind of person probably loves it when somebody points out when they're doing something stupid that's
Yeah,
costing them money.
yeah.
And I think the government's never really even had that perspective of itself. It's
Not a
just like
chance.
constantly wasting money.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let us know what you guys think, and
See you next week.
see you next week. Yeah.
As always, thank you for listening and following.
Check us out every Thursday on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, anywhere podcasts are available.
You can find us on Instagram at Unstoppable Force Podcast and Twitter at UForcePod for news and updates.
We'll see you guys next week. And
And
until
until then,
then, stay
stay
unstoppable.
unstoppable.